Come up. I'm Justin Bader with the Principal Center, and I was looking into the legislation around recess because I think often our philosophy is baked into our legislation, or eventually it does. And my state, Arkansas, recently passed some new legislation about recess, defining it as instructional time. So I was with you for your thoughts, get your feedback on this. So this is from the Arkansas Department of Education, Commissioner's Office. Last year, in 2019, there was a new bill that became law, Act 641, to increase the required minutes for recess/unstructured play to 40 minutes a day for elementary students. 40 minutes a day. What do you think about that? Is 40 minutes a day an appropriate amount of time? I have to say, let me know what you think, but I have to say I love it. I think recess is an absolutely critical part of the school day, and I love that they are defining it. Here it is, defines recess as part of the instructional day. I think we made a mistake over the last couple of decades in defining recess as non-learning time, right? In defining recess as a removal of students from the learning environment just so they can go kill time or burn off energy or whatever. I love this definition of recess as instructional time. Now, teachers may not love this 100% because it says supervision of recess is no longer considered a non-instructional duty and doesn't count toward the 60 minutes per week limit. And I'm glad that our state has that 60 minutes per week limit of non-instructional duty. I think we really have to protect teachers' duty time so that they can actually use their time when they're on campus for collaboration, for planning, for preparation, for the many, many things that they have to do to be successful in the classroom. I do think we have to limit this. And I also want to emphasize what a big value there is, what a good investment it is to have recess supervisors and not just make teachers do all of that. So even though I love this definition of recess as not a non-instructional time, I want to encourage you to think about how are we using recess purposefully as part of our day? Are we building learning opportunities into recess? Are we using recess not as a time for people to just kind of kill, but really to see it as time for for preparation, for collaboration? Sometimes it is the best time for a team to quickly meet. And I know we think in terms of prep time, when the kids are at PE, that can be collaboration time. But I think we've also got to look at, how much collaboration time do people really need and how much prep time do people really need. I personally feel like we do not give teachers nearly enough prep time in the United States. I think teachers really could benefit from a doubling or a tripling of the prep time that they get in order to do the best job possible on behalf of students. So let me know what you think about this. Do you like this definition of recess as instructional time? Do you like this 40 minutes a day requirement for elementary students that we have in my state? I want to share one more thing. I think I have it in another tab here that I found really interesting about this. This is from the actual text of the bill, and this is actually why I was looking into it. It defines recess pretty specifically, and it's been raining a lot lately. It's not raining at the moment. I don't know when it's going to rain next, but I've got elementary age kids, and often they come home at the end of the day and tell me, we pick them up from school and say, hey, how was school today? Did you get to go outside for recess? And often the answer has been, no, we didn't go outside for recess. And I'll think, did it rain today? What's going on here? So I was looking into this and what the policy is at the state level. So in addition to defining recess as instructional time, I'll make this a little bit bigger for you here. Our law at the moment, as of 2019, says that recess not only needs to be 40 minutes a day, and it is instructional time, but it shall consist of supervised, unstructured social time during which public school students may communicate with each other. By the way, has anybody seen this phenomenon of silent lunch or silent recess? Let's not do that. We do not need to have silent lunch or silent recess. Yes, the kids are going to be loud. That's the point. It is time for them to socialize and develop social skills and communicate with one another. It needs to, number 2, occur outdoors when weather and other relevant conditions permit. All right. Now, here's where I got to talk about boys. There is a big temptation, a big tendency for teachers to say, okay, it's recess, but we're just going to put on a movie today. Because frankly, it's easier to manage. I have to applaud the legislature for saying, recess is outdoors, and that whenever possible, recess is outdoors. And I live in the South here, and sometimes we get a little spoiled about our weather, and we're like, oh, it's cold today, but by cold we mean it's 42 degrees. Oh, let's keep the kids inside and just put on a movie. No, when the weather and other relevant conditions permit, we've got to look at what weather really means. And of course, we never want to send kids outside when they're not going to be appropriately dressed. You know, if you have a kid come to school in t-shirt and shorts, we got to do something about that. We can't just send them outside if it's 12 degrees outside. But we do have to recognize that unless you live in the coldest place on Earth, it is probably colder somewhere else where the kids are going outside for recess, whereas you are keeping them in. And we have clients at the Principal Center who are in Canada. I have friends who are principals in Alaska. And let me tell you, yes, the kids come appropriately dressed because they have to. You know, you're not going to make it to school in Alaska in the wintertime if you're not appropriately dressed, but they do send them out. And there is a cutoff point where, you know, it's too cold to send them out, or maybe it's raining or whatever, and we don't send them out. But I think we need to take a hard look at, you know, if those cutoffs are really in the best interest of students, or if they're just in the best interests of the adults who complain if they're cold or if it's muddy and it's kind of a hassle. I think we've got to really take this philosophy that kids need recess, that recess is instructional time. I think we've really got to take that seriously because it's true. And what happens if we take it away? What happens if we use recess as just a time to show videos so that, you know, the teacher can do some prep or maybe some intervention work? Maybe we can get some more learning time. What happens if we use recess that way? How do we pay the price for that ultimately? I'm going to suggest that we pay the price mostly in the behavior and attention of boys. We mostly pay the cost of that missed recess in increased behavior problems, decreased focus, decreased learning, especially for boys. We are missing out. We are misdiagnosing a lot of boys as having behavior problems, as having attention problems, when really they need their stinking recess. They just need to go out and run and play. And we all know that as educators. You know, I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know and believe, but I think we've allowed ourselves to be convinced that in order to improve learning, we have to increase the amount of time that kids' butts are in their seats at their desks, or sitting on the rug, or listening to direct instruction, or working in a small group. And we've discounted, we've undervalued the time that kids spend out at recess. Here's the one more thing I wanted to specifically highlight here. Number 3, recess must include, without limitation, opportunities for free play and vigorous physical activity. Vigorous physical activity. Do you have kids in your school who just need vigorous physical activity every day, several times a day? Yes, you do. I know you do. I had them in my school. You have them in your school. You might have been one of those kids. You might be one of those kids even as a grown-up. We need vigorous physical activity. It is part of my day. I go to the gym every day that I possibly can, and I regret it on the days that I don't. And if you are not getting that vigorous physical activity, man, you know, even if you're on your feet, even if you're getting your 10,000 steps, there is something especially fun about picking up a game of kickball or whatever kids these days play, and, you know, being short of breath. Have you ever been short of breath at school just because you were running around and playing? There is something magical about that, and that's one of the things I love about being an elementary educator and, you know, being an elementary principal. That was just one of my favorite parts of the job, that you can do that, right? There's not this expectation that you just have to be the person who's dressed formally and acts formally and talks formally and never runs and never has fun. You know, there is something to that vigorous physical activity. But here's what's surprising about this language, and I have to, again, applaud the Arkansas legislature for including this, regardless of whether recess occurs indoors or outdoors. Ooh. Rainy day recess still needs to include opportunities for free play and vigorous physical activities. What this means, at least in my state, is that showing a movie is illegal as a recess activity. If we do not let the kids run and engage in free play and engage in vigorous physical activity, that actually violates the law as of 2019. And of course, it's not my goal to make a stink here or to encourage anyone to be prosecuted under this law, but I want to celebrate the philosophy here, and I want to celebrate the belief that is now encoded in our state laws in Act 641 of 2019 that recess is instructional time, that students deserve recess every day, supervised, unstructured social time during which public school students may communicate with each other outdoors whenever possible, and including without limitation, opportunities for free play and vigorous physical activity, regardless of whether it has to be indoors or out. I love it. Let me know what you think. School boards, hey, this might be a little bit of a tough one to implement. We might need to look at a covered play area. We might need to look at opening the gym for a recess time if the weather is just going to not allow us to go outside. I think we really need to look at our physical space and the suitability of that space for complying with the law and providing students with the recess opportunities that they now are entitled to under the law, at least in my state. So it may be that we need to build some covered play areas. It may be that the football field is not the top priority in terms of capital projects. It may be that we need to say, hey, we need covered basketball courts outdoors so that kids can go outdoors, or we need to expand our gym so that we can have recess in the gym. Might be expensive, might cost a lot of money, but how much money do we spend dealing with behavior problems, dealing with learning problems and attention problems? How many meetings do we sit in when often we know 80% of the problem that we're seeing is because kids are not getting enough time to run around and play and have that vigorous physical activity that we know they need. So I just wanted to hop on here and talk about this a bit. I would love to know what you think about recess as a learning time, as an instructional time. Let me know, leave a comment, and tell me what you think about recess. Take care.